This is The Unhappy Millionaire, where entrepreneurs and other top performers discover how to go beyond the bank balance to create thriving, joyful lives. For more, visit theunhappymillionaire.com. Now, on to the show.
Welcome. Hi, Don. I'm really happy to be doing this with you.
Nothing more interesting to talk about than happiness, Tal. And I'd love to hear the story of where this issue became front and center for you.
Yes, let's call it The Unhappy Millionaire, the title of the story. I'll tell the end of it and then we'll work back from it. So here I am in Scottsdale, Arizona, being invited to a mastermind group of multimillionaires, people coming to this event with their private jets. And I'm in a room with hundreds of people who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, some of them billions. And I thought I've arrived. I'm here in the room with successful people. They're all super well dressed, smiling, having a good time, getting a little drunk in the evening before. And we're starting the conference about what it means to be an entrepreneur at the highest level. And yeah, you have to pay 25,000, 100K. Some people pay even more to even get into the room. The host gets on the stage and he introduces the program. And I, unfortunately, being invited at the last minute, did not really pay attention to the program, but he said something like, we're all here. We want to be the best entrepreneurs we can be. We want to live the best lives and want to be happy. But us entrepreneurs, we have problems, right? So this program is going to deal with the problems of being an entrepreneur. 1, addiction. 2, depression. 3, how to find work-life balance, and so on and so forth. And the experts on the stage on those 2 days were only experts about depression, addiction, psychological issues, and all kinds of success stories in business, which were great. By the way, that part was awesome because people are experts in making money and they know how to build a product. The thing that really got me is one of the ladies at the end, he was interviewing her about her business, and she has a coaching business. And she said, my goal when I opened the company was to make $1 million a year from coaching or teaching how to coach. And then I made the million very quickly. So my goal was $10 million. And then I made the $10 million. And she said, and my next goal is 50 million. And he asks her, and where are you? At like 47. But my goal is already 100. And you see that she's very motivated. I mean, excited about what she's doing, but something's off. I couldn't say what's off, but something was off. And they talk. And in the last question, before they end the interview, he asks her, so what are you doing for fun? She says, I'm working like 16 hours a day, all weekend. Usually on a Thursday night or Friday morning, we take our private jet. We load cases of champagne and booze. We take a couple of friends. We fly to a beach. We get wasted for the weekend, only to come back on Monday and do it all over again. That's the life. And for her, the life is like an athlete, but from her perspective, a suffering athlete. I'm going to suffer all week long. Then I'm going to get wasted in the weekend. And my goal is more money. That's it. I found meaning. And everybody's clapping and cheering. And I was like, looking around me, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. This is not it. You've missed the whole point. And during the weekend, I got really frustrated, really understanding that everyone around me is first grade, second grade, or even not that in the study of happiness. What is the goal here? Don't you guys get it? In your businesses, you spent years defining your metrics, what does success look like, and you have done zero thinking about your inner life, your own life. So I came out with the idea of that all of those millionaires are just miserable.
I remember you calling me after that, and it rocked you a bit, but I think part of what rocked you was it resonated.
It did, unfortunately, because it actually sent me back about a decade, exactly to where I was. It's more money in the bank. It's more success. It's more prestige. It's more people reporting to me. It's more getting the VP, senior VP. It's all about externalities. And what I hope you and I will dive into and take our listeners to a journey with us is let's get very sophisticated. Let's get smart. Let's get scientific about our inner world, because it's very easy to see things from the outside. The money in the bank, the amount of zeros in the bank, what people say about you, your title in the company, whatever that is very easy to see. It's quote unquote objective, but no one can see what's going on inside. No one can see how hard it is for you to deal with your depressions, with your anxieties, with your lack of meaning, episodes of lack of meaning, almost cynicism that I had in my life. It's like, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I know I love my kids. I know I love my wife. I know like my family is really important to me. I don't know. I've never chosen my path from a passion perspective. So I was in technology, right? And it chose me because it was the easiest way to make money. I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. So when the 90s came along with internet, it took us all with it. And I never asked myself, what do I want? What is mine? And just to figure out at the age of 40 that my life is not mine. I've never chosen it. And I was always optimizing for the wrong things.
And this is really common. I think that entrepreneurs and other creators, they often think that success will bring happiness, and then they'll get it. They'll prosper, and they realize that, it hasn't brought me the happiness that I thought it would be, which I think of as the success crisis. But my view is success without happiness is failure.
Success without happiness is failure, completely. I think let's claim back the word success. Let's define what success is. Let me say one thing about money, just to put it aside. Money is not the goal. Money is frozen energy. Money is your ability to use energy stored in order to do things that are not productive, that are not making you more energy. So if I want to travel to Indian Wales to see tennis, yeah, I'm going into my stored energy bank and I'm spending energy because this is not a productive pursuit. And people optimize for that. How much storage of energy do I have? And the question is, how much do you need? Because that is not the only source of happiness. It is in some respect, right? You need energy in order to go and pursue values that do not produce more energy. But that is not the goal. I want to claim back success. Success in my dictionary is much deeper, much more multifaceted. It's deeper, multidimensional. Who am I? What am I doing? How am I expressing myself in this life? How am I bringing who I am to the world through my productive pursuits? So I actually wouldn't even give them the word success by saying that they have a lot of money. They're not successful. They're rich, but not successful.
So if we're taking the goal as happiness and trying to delve into what then is the cause of the success crisis, where people can achieve conventional view of success, they can achieve money, they can run their own business. I mean, you grew businesses, you started businesses, you sold businesses, but that still didn't get you to the point of happiness. And I think the first thing to stress is that's really striking. This is not an easy problem to solve.
It's the ultimate achievement. I think people take the word happiness too lightly. If you go out in the street and ask people on the street, are you happy? Everybody says yes. Although they don't really understand what the meaning is. I think there's a success crisis, as you put it. I am talking to smart people. And smart people need to realize that in realms of they're experts in, they know how sophisticated and complicated the world is. If you're a scientist, if you're a business person, if you're an engineer, whatever you are, you know that what you're doing is really complicated. It'll take you several years to explain what you're doing to someone, really at a deep level. But in the realm of happiness, it's like, yeah, everybody gets it. We don't have to talk about it. And I think it's the result of horrendous education that we're getting about the state of the human condition. We're not taught philosophy, or at least the right ones. We're not reading the right or getting exposed to the right kind of art. So we have a very shallow understanding of this achievement. Yeah, so there is a crisis. I completely agree. And it stems from basic misunderstandings about the human condition and how we get to thrive as conceptual beings. What does that mean to thrive as a conceptual being? And in that learning, there are a lot of fallacies.
Well, two big ones, because we're not the first people to observe that successful individuals often hit this wall where they realize that what they thought would satisfy them, what they thought would fulfill them, doesn't. And the real two big diagnoses that I hear are that their problem was that they made work too big a priority. They treated work as too crucial to their lives. You've probably heard this, like nobody's on their deathbed wishing that they had put in more hours at the office. And then related to that, it's that they've prioritized themselves over others. And so what they're taught is, hey, cut back on work, go on a meditation retreat, and serve a cause greater than yourself. I don't think that this can lead to happiness, because happiness comes from being unconflicted, and that kind of diagnosis leaves you with a big conflict. It's work versus life. It's yourself versus others. It's asking you to be pulled in two different directions. And instead of giving you a kind of consistent vision for your life, something that brings all the pieces together in a harmonious way to actually fill you with joy. And so my view, and I'm interested to hear what you think about this, like happiness doesn't come from serving a cause greater than yourself. It comes from doing the hard work of thinking deeply about how to build a self and a life that you love.
I've always hated the work-life balance. I never understood that term. It's my work against my life are two sides of a scale, and I need to balance. What is the life, by the way? Okay, forget about work. Now, what's left? Vacation, being with my family. What does that mean? Is that the good part and the work is the bad part? Am I investing in work and then using the investment? It's almost like two sides of a scale. And I knew it as a kid that when I immerse myself with something I'm interested in, that you can call work or play or whatever, that's the best time. So you're completely right. Let's unite all of this and let's see the one in the many. So I'm talking to the smart people who are truth seekers. I want to talk to the people who are not satisfied with contradictions. The way I see it is that because of morality, because of the way we are taught to think about what's good, we put ourselves somewhere in a weird place. And not all of us adopt a completely altruistic view of selflessness, complete selflessness. I mean, if you look at heroes in the culture, you can see that Steve Jobs was not a selfless person. He's still regarded a hero with business people. Why? It's very hard to say. They will always say it's because of what he created, the genius of his creation. I see him as a moral hero. I want to live a life like him. He's a moral idol for me. And that it does not resonate with most people. It's like, no, he was an asshole. He didn't had a child outside his marriage and he never invested in his family enough. He never gave money to charity. He was not a big philanthropist or never gave anything to charity. So we don't think about him much as a moral ideal, but as far as creative ideal, yes, I think that's where the problem is. And I want to be concrete because Steve Jobs, and yeah, he had all kinds of issues, but put that aside for a second. This is how I want to live life. I want to be immersed with something that I'm fascinated with. And I'm doing it for myself because I find it meaningful. It's what I want to do. Nobody tells me what I should love. And that is the good, being selfish, if you will, but rationally selfish. You call it effective egoism, which I think is the right term. I think that's where the problem starts.
My story is a little different from yours, or very different from yours. You're the businessman who became an intellectual. I was the intellectual who've become more and more focused on business as I've gone along. And for me, from day one, I always prioritized career fulfillment over kind of conventional notions of success. I remember I was working in a sales department writing business proposals in my early 20s, but all my free time was spent writing about philosophy, writing about ideas, and that was what I was passionate about. And then I got an offer when I was 23 to come write about philosophy professionally, and it meant taking, on paper, a 25% pay cut. But it was actually a lot more than that for two reasons. Number one, I was about to get a big raise doing what I was doing. And number two, I was moving from Virginia to Southern California, which the cost of living is going to skyrocket for it. But for me, it was a no-brainer. I'm going to spend most of my time, most of my life doing work. And if I'm not enjoying that time, if I'm not getting deep fulfillment out of it, I'm throwing my life away. What value is money to me if the actual moments of my life are spent hating my life? And so my trajectory has been really focused around a fulfilling career and thinking deeply about the issues underlying happiness. And in particular, you mentioned the issue of morality. What is the right moral perspective to take on your life in order to achieve happiness. And so I think that if you actually approach morality as it's a blueprint for building a self and a life that you love, I think one thing that you'll learn, one thing that it teaches you is not less work, but more fulfilling work. The problem is not when an entrepreneur is working 12 hours a day or 14 hours a day or 16 hours a day. Sometimes maybe they have their priorities out of whack, but if those 16 hours are spent with a Steve Jobs type career where you are immersed in stuff that really means something to you, fantastic. And it's not work-life balance. It's really work-life integration. It's do all the pieces of my life fit? Am I able to combine passionate work with great relationships, with whatever hobbies I want to pursue? I mean, you work as hard as anybody I've ever met in my life, but you have all kinds of hobbies. I hope at some point we get to delve into Tal the drummer, which I've had the pleasure to see. And this is something that we'll want to delve into in the future at some point. It's not self versus others, but a rich conception of self-interest that includes the mutually fulfilling relationships that help us really enjoy and add meaning to our lives. And so you mentioned effective egoism, which is how I think about this moral approach. It's erratic that my view is the solution to the success crisis ultimately requires people to embrace a morality of happiness, which I call effective egoism. It's a different view of morality than what we've been taught, and it's one that provides this blueprint so that we can have the work, the relationship, the hobbies, the whole approach to life that we can solve the happiness problem. Now, no way we're going to be able to give all the pieces in this first podcast, but I think that if I'm a person who's achieving a lot right now and I'm not satisfied, my reaction would be, I need this, because this is the key to everything.
I have to say, I guess you're smarter and luckier than I am. And I'll explain myself.
We're more reckless.
Well, you were born in America. Who were your childhood heroes?
Baseball players, musicians, superheroes.
Awesome. You know what I was taught to admire? I remember when I was about 4 or 5, I was in a synagogue. And if you were rich and you gave a lot of money to the synagogue, you would get your name on the chair and you would sit and you don't have to look for open chairs. You had your own. That's success. You go, you make money, and then you give it to the synagogue. That is success. And then at the age of 9, I was thrown to a kibbutz, which is a commune in Israel. And then I was taught the opposite. Forget about God. Forget about that. If you're good, you're going to sacrifice yourself to the kibbutz, to the commune. That means, and I remember that if you're a top engineer, which was the guy who created a plastic factory and was the head of the plastic factory, actually went and washed dishes and did laundry instead of managing, because that was a rotation. That is heroism. Sacrificing yourself. So you see, you're luckier than I am, because my moral role models were that. And then I had the pressure of, you need to be an engineer, a lawyer, or a doctor. That's it. That's respectable. Being a drummer, what are you talking about? What you love, who cares? And I think smarter in the sense that you knew at 23 that what you found meaning in is more important than money. It took me 20 years to figure that out. So I would love, maybe in the several episodes come, really unpack this issue. But I think you nailed it when you said this is a success failure. This is a problem that plagues so many people. And the sad thing is that you see people that are focused and heroic, and then they never have the moral foundation to derive the self-esteem, to derive the confidence to say, I'm a good person and this is great. They feel bad about themselves. They feel they're not worthy. They're the selfish people and they need to compensate. It's a disaster. And unfortunately, there's so much self-help. The market of self-help for business people is so big because they suffer, and it's unjust. That's what's so painful.
It definitely is unjust. I mean, I think if you're sitting here listening to this podcast, the idea that morality could be relevant to happiness, the way we're taught to think about morality is it's the opposite of happiness. Happiness is when pursuit of happiness, that's the selfish endeavor, and morality is about reining in what you want for the sake of something greater than yourself. And one of the results of that orientation towards morality, the anti-self orientation towards morality, is that the more successful you are, the more you achieve, if you create that plastics factory, the less consideration you deserve. And so one of the reasons that I wanted to create this podcast, and I think you share this view, is people who have achieved a lot, who are successful, they're not starving in the streets. They're still facing challenges. They're still suffering. They're not happy. They're not enjoying their lives. It's very rare for that kind of person to be addressed because that's considered unimportant. No, what's important is the person who's made nothing of their life, who's achieved nothing. And so there's all sorts of resources for them, but the only resources for successful individuals is, as you say, things like self-help, which they can be helpful to a point, but they're superficial. They don't go deep enough. And because they don't give you a firm moral foundation, morality is what gives you self-esteem and self-confidence. It's not just that I had built a business, it's that I've done what's right in the world. And so I think until people are offered a morality of effective egoism, then they're still going to be chasing a goal that they can never reach. And so successful entrepreneurs, they're offered countless options for 10xing their business, but none of them are offered anything for 10xing their happiness. And what I'd like to see, the reason that I'm doing this, is that I want to change that, to give people the tools to grow from a successful business to a successful life.
And just to add to that, just translate that to business terms, right? It's like we go study so much in order to build products and technology. And we know that we're relying on either great physics or engineering that was invented before us. So we're standing on a platform that is really solid. And then we're building our life on businesses on top of that, all that knowledge. We're integrating that into our businesses, business practices, and so much wisdom around the technology. In my case, it was computer science and databases, and you apply all of that. In the inner world of who I am and how do I experience happiness, that physics doesn't exist. And what you call effective egoism is actually a name for that foundation. What is happiness? Do you understand what it means? How does it look? For me, this podcast is going to be a journey into that. It's going deeper into the foundation of a good life, of a thriving life that we call happiness. And it's a deep word for me. It carries a lot of weight. If somebody asks me, are you happy? I will think long and hard before answering. It's not a simple yes. Happiness is the ultimate achievement. And because you and I have some understanding of this foundation that I hope we'll dive deeper into, we can understand what it means to build a life on top of that foundation. And going to the self-help, I think it's a proof of how shallow that foundation is. I found 3 types of self-help. One is do it because it worked for me. It's like an engineer saying, look, I have no idea why I'm building it, why it worked. I don't have the physics for it. Trust me, it worked for me. Try it yourself. In the realm of happiness, it's a disaster because what worked for him might not work for you because your world of values could be almost the opposite. 2 is do it because somebody said so. God or society or the culture. This is what happiness is all about. You see us like, this is bigger than you. Tony Robbins, like give. If when you don't have, give even more because the universe will give it back to you. The religious people say, do it because God said so. Judeo-Christianity is all about business. Bullshit. And then the third one, which is, I think, the most dangerous, is you see all of the books coming out, is like science said so. But what kind of science? We're taking the material sciences and we're applying it to happiness. So we're running all kinds of experiments, and 63% of the people who did this and did more meditation, 40 minutes of meditation a day, reported 23% increase in their happiness. Bullshit. This is not the type of science of happiness. It's the wrong science. The science is philosophy and then psychology, the right type of psychology, but not the way the material scientists are approaching it. So all those books of stumbling on happiness, and it's horrific because first you read them and you get more confused about what happiness is. What is it? It's just a Jordan Peterson telling me that if I do a little bit more of that, science says that I will feel more like that. No, it's not. It's the wrong approach. So all of the advice that we get as business people is coming from either wrong philosophy or wrong practices or wrong science. And as you said, some of it is really good because some engineers figure things out, but without the physics. And what I hope you and I can offer in this podcast is the integration of both the science, the philosophy, and the practice.
I'm Don Watkins, he's Tal Safani, and this has been The Unhappy Millionaire. Ready to take the next step in your journey? Visit theunhappymillionaire.com, where you can find powerful resources for building a life that you love and details on how you can work with Tal and me.